Hello, this is Ashley Glessner, and this is my audio journal. My character was a 1920s young woman. She lives in New York City and has gone through many ups and downs due to our country's political and economic problems, such as changes in presidents and the Great Depression. In my favorite entry, which I will read later, one of the biggest struggles in her life was her house being foreclosed by the government. I chose to be a young woman during this time period because I feel like if I lived in the 1920s, I would be most like a flapper. And I feel like this character would be fun to relive the experiences through and write about. I chose the storyline for my character and started with the election of 1920 because it showed the beginning of our country changing, and I felt like it was a very significant event that affected what happened later to my character. And for the prompts, I tried to relate them to modern issues. For example, the one about her foreclosure felt like a fire was burning down her house, and she could only take the things that she wanted and needed to survive. Obviously, there were many challenges I had to overcome while I was writing my journals. It was difficult to relate the modern prompts in the 1900s, but I thought about how I would react to the situation if I were there in that time period. It was also hard to figure out how and where I wanted to start my story, but I decided to start with the election of Harding because it developed the character I was portraying and showed a major change that was occurring in our country at the time. As I was saying earlier, my favorite prompt was, "What would you grab in a fire?" which is my 6th journal. So I'm going to be reading that now. Here we go. Wow, I thought life couldn't get worse. It is December 13th, 1929, and we just found out some awful news. No, our house is not being burned down in a fire, but it sure feels like it. This past week, we found out that Liam lost his job due to the lack of demand and money to pay for workers' wages. I guess I should just be lucky that we were able to keep his job for a couple months. With no income, we are in a state of bankruptcy and our house is being foreclosed by the government. The situation is not as dramatic as a wildfire, but we have to pack our bags and only bring the necessities. As of right now, I have packed some clothes, photographs, and blankets for the cold winter. This foreclosure could not have happened at a worse time, since it is almost Christmas time and New York City is freezing. I think all I'm going to grab before we leave is the list above, but I just can't bear with the fact that we are leaving our home. The sights in the city are quite terrifying. It seems like millions are homeless and are just walking around hoping for a scrap of food. New York has turned into a Hooverville itself, and seeing all of these horrible changes around me gives me anxiety about the future. I just don't want to end up living out on the cold, dangerous streets, so hopefully we can find another place to live. I will write again once we figure things out. However, there is not much time to sit down and write. I greatly hope the next diary will be a more positive one. Thank you for reading and listening to The Diary of Janie Jones, who was a 1920s flapper girl.